My name is Pelham Hasler. Today is Wednesday, April 12th. The time is 4:04, and we are at the Pewaukee VFW. I am interviewing Bob Teska, who was born on June 7th, 1927 in Cudahy, Wisconsin, and served in the Second World War between 1945 and 1947. Mr. Teska was a private first class in the Army and served as a guard at Eisenhower's headquarters in Frankfurt, Germany. This interview is sponsored by the Bell Tower Memorial. Right. So, I first wanted to ask you about, you were born in Cudahy, Wisconsin. What was it like living there?
Well, I didn't know because I was still a baby, but we actually moved several times, and I lived my younger days in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. But that was all within a certain range where it was a good life.
It was, so you said it was a good life. What did you spend a lot of time doing where you lived?
Well, I was still going to school at that time.
Yes.
Grade school, and then later on, of course, you graduate from school, and you move on to the high school. But then we moved into Milwaukee, city of Milwaukee, south side of Milwaukee, and we went to Pulaski High School from there.
And I wanted to touch on your family when you were in Milwaukee. What was your family like?
Oh, well, I had two brothers. One was younger than me and one was older. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They both were older and I was the youngest. And it was nice living out in the country. My dad had chickens and ducks and stuff, and we had a good time.
And so you said your father had chickens and ducks. So what did your family do for jobs?
Well, this was Depression time, so my dad was had a pretty hard time supporting us, but he would work for farmers around the area that he knew, and they would, at that time, if you got $1 a day, you were pretty good.
So did being in the midst of the Great Depression have an effect on you being able to go to school?
No, we had a good two-room school with 8 grades, and it didn't have any effect at all on the schooling.
So when did you end up being drafted?
Oh, this is quite a few years later. I just graduated from high school, Pulaski High School in Milwaukee, and after that, I went almost right away into the Army.
So was it as soon as you turned 18 they drafted you?
Yeah. Well, I turned 18 on June 7th, and I graduated from high school around the 16th. I kind of forget, but it was pretty close to the time I graduated, and I went right into the Army.
And I want to go back to your brothers. You said you had 2 older brothers, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What did your brothers do since they were older? What were they doing once they had turned 18?
Well, one of them had gone. He was already into the Army at the time I was drafted, and my other brother was 4F. He had bad eyesight, so I didn't know this either until a lot later. When I came home, he was in the service. they were so desperate for people for working in the offices and that he was drafted too.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, you didn't know what your brother was doing. I want to touch on that. Did you get a lot of communication with your family?
Well, just with my family, but my mother and father, but not much with the other ones because that was the army mailing, and we didn't write to each other too much.
How did your mom feel that all three of you had gone to the service?
Well, when I went, they weren't so concerned. But when my first brother went, he was in the war in Germany, so it was a tougher time for him.
And how did you feel about being drafted?
Well, at the time, I was drafted on June, the 16th of June. Or was it late? Anyways, that was in August 16th. And well, I figured everybody else went. I had to serve my term, so I did.
And you were only drafted after the war had ended in Japan, right?
Yes, on the day I was in Fort Sheridan, at the day the Japanese said, "We'll give up." And they heard me out. They heard that I was coming.
Yeah. I'm sure that they gave up as soon as they heard it.
Right.
So, I wanted to talk a little bit about, like you said, you were serving your term for the Army. What was the agreement and how long you would be staying?
Well, that was kind of confusing too because Japan just surrendered. So I was still ready to ship out. So I was at the shipping depot in New York, and when I got there, they said, asked me if I want to just serve my, not knowing how long I'm going to serve, or if I want to volunteer. So I figured, well, I can volunteer for 6 months. So I volunteered for a year, and I was already in for 6 months. So I said, I'll volunteer for a year. So I volunteered for a year, and then they sent me over to Germany.
And how long were you in Germany for?
For my year. Well, not quite, because when I got to Germany, they asked me if I wanted to join the paratroopers. And there were quite a few of us that said, yes, it'd be interesting. So we had our training there. We didn't have as much, no tower or anything like that in Germany, but that's where pictures like this come out. We just were in a sand, like a sand pit. They filled a big space with sand, and they had abandoned an airplane there, and we believed we were jumping out of the door into the sand. So it was quite interesting, and we got through it in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I forget which.
And I wanted to talk about your training a little bit. So when you went through basic training, before you ended up going to Germany,
Okay.
what was basic training like and how did you get there?
Well, I was at Camp Robinson, Arkansas, and this was only for 6 weeks. And I didn't mind it. I figured everybody else is going. I can go too. Or I have to have my turn, you know. So it wasn't that bad, except the sleeping outdoor for a few days was only the worst thing there was.
And I mean, I wanted to touch on that a bit more. What was it like adapting to that military style of life?
Well, it was something new, different, and it was warm, and so it wasn't that bad. I didn't mind it. It was a good experience, put it that way.
How did they feed you while you were going through that basic training?
Oh, very, very good. I usually was the last one at the table, still eating, and they fed us very well.
What would be a kind of meal that you would have had?
Oh, there was always bread and butter. I think that's the basics, I guess.
Yeah.
And let's see. Oh, well, we'd have pork and just a basic, almost a basic meal that you would have at home. Cooks are always very good.
So it was it freshly cooked meals that you ended up having?
Oh, yes, yes.
And then, well, I wanted to ask if you were disappointed that you had only showed up and been drafted when the war had ended.
Oh, no, I thought I was going to Japan though, I really did. But I'm glad I got to Germany. The people were friendly. You know, most of the time, the difference between the people, but it usually isn't. The people are friendly, they were good. We usually had them wash our clothes. And, you know, every Monday, they'd be out there waiting, they'd like to do something that then we gave them their cigarettes or candy or something for doing it.
So it was sort of like they do something for you, you give them something as well? Sort of a good relationship?
That's right, yeah.
And I wanted to talk a bit about how you ended up getting to Germany. How did you get there?
Oh, we left from New York on it wasn't a battleship, but it was one of these small ships. I don't know what they call it, U-follow ship or something, I forget. But there was a full load, and it took us from the day, I don't know if it went every day, but it took us to Easter. We landed in Le Havre on Easter. And there were a lot of people out there welcoming us, and we were surprised.
I suppose I wanted to touch on this picture. Is this the
That's coming back, come back home.
This is coming back? All right.
Yes.
Well, then I would also like to ask you on how you ended up getting back. How did you get back in terms of the way you got there?
With a ship.
With a ship?
Today they fly. Today they fly everybody home, but then they were still stuck with the ships.
Do you wish that you had been able to fly, or was it not a big deal to go back on the boat?
No, it wasn't that big deal. It was good.
When you were in Germany, what did you do? What was your job when you were there?
Well, it was mostly guard duty and parade to show off the paratroopers. But it was guard duty, two days on and 2 days off. At the McFarland building in Frankfurt.
So you guarded that building. Why were you assigned to that building? What made it important?
Because the 508 Parachute Infantry, they were guarding Eisenhower, and his main office was in McFarland building, McFarland building. I don't know, anyways, in fact, I heard that during the war, the bombers were told not to damage that building because eventually they weren't going to have that as the headquarters. And so they kind of stayed away from that building, but most of the city was pretty well bombed up.
And in terms of how it was bombed up, did any of the German people have any sort of ill will towards you and the different people in the army when you came?
No, not really. I didn't see it in them. They were pretty friendly.
And if I'm understanding, you were part of the Army of Occupation in Germany?
Yes. I stayed there a year, but then during that time I got into the paratroops, and the 508 Infantry Regiment, they abandoned it, so we went home before my time was up, and I spent the rest of the time at home in Virginia.
And well, okay, so you were working as a guard.
Yes.
What else were your responsibilities working as a guard? Was it mostly just guarding? And you talked about parades too. What did that entail?
The parade and the guard, that's all we did. Like for certain holidays, we parade down in Germany, in Frankfurt.
When you were doing parades, what kind of things were you doing in these parades?
Well, it's just mainly showing off, I guess. You know, our duty was mainly to parade and to stand guard at the guard posts outside and in the post office and at Eisenhower.
Did you, when you were working as a guard, did you ever end up stopping anybody? Or did you ever have to stop anyone when you were a guard?
Oh yes, and they'd have to show their credentials so that they could go through. Or most of the time they were the soldiers coming back from their night out or something like that.
And you said you were guarding Eisenhower.
Yes.
Do you think that generals need that kind of protection in and outside of wartime?
Well, they did. I guess they figured they needed it. So it was kind of interesting. We just stood at ease all for 2 hours, and when they came through, we got to snap to salute. But it wasn't that hard.
So did you see Eisenhower a lot when you had to snap to attention?
Oh, yes, he was up and back quite a bit, in and out of the building. I'm sorry I can't give you a longer answer.
It's okay. I mostly just want to ask, was there anything that Eisenhower did that people might not know about? Like quirks or things that he tended to do?
Well, I really, sorry, I don't know, or I forgot what it is.
I assume when you were working as a guard, you and whoever was with you must have had an opinion of Eisenhower and how he was as a general above you, how he treated you guys. What was it, how did you guys feel about Eisenhower?
Oh, I felt very good about him. He treated the whole, all of us very, very good.
And is that a sentiment that was pretty common with the people who were guarding?
I think so, yes. They didn't see too much wrong with him. I know now some people are complaining about him, but at the time, seemed okay.
And talking about the other people that you were working with when you were guarding, did most of you get along pretty well? Did you make friends pretty easily?
Oh, yes, there are a few friends that I made. I don't know. Oh, there's nobody else here. But we were all friends, put it that way.
Did it feel like you sort of had to be?
No. But there were groups. I just had two main friends that I went around with most of the time.
Can you tell me anything about those friends?
Well, one was from Hawaii, so he was a Hawaiian, and he was a really nice friend. And the other one was from Chicago. We always went out together, or went down to the beer hall. We had a beer hall in our building.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the beer hall and other places like that. What was the food like when you were in Germany?
Well, it was very, very good, because I guess we had Americans, in charge of it, but the Germans, we had the Germans cooking for us, and we had our own cafeteria, and everything okay. It was like a homemade meal.
And I mean, you never had to eat rations or anything like that. It was all pretty good homemade food.
No, I didn't eat too many rations. Only if we were out for a week or so. But otherwise, it was always a home cooked meal. Even I think when we were out, the cook came along with us, and his van, with all the stuff cooked in the truck.
So those are pretty high quality meals, right? How did you feel? I mean, every day you basically got a very nice home cooked meal.
You get used to it, put it that way. You get used to it. But I guess I got used to it too.
And I want to shift a little bit to some of these photos. So we've already covered this one and this one.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this one?
That was coming home.
Another coming home
That
picture?
was another coming home. It the same.
I see.
It was the same time.
And I mean, how did you feel going home? I mean, you told me, if I remember correctly, that every single part of the 508 parachute division
Yes,
went home.
yes. Well, I wish that they would have finished out there, but that they stopped at our regiment. But when we got home, it was a little bit different. It wasn't as much guard duty. I think we had 4 months left when we came back. And we spent that here at, I think it was in Virginia.
And when you were in Virginia, was it did you have a bit of an easier time sending mail to your family?
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't write too much. I wasn't the kind of a guy, I didn't write too much, but it was easier at home, yeah.
And what is this a picture of?
This picture, that's me getting my parachute wings.
Oh, this was after
Out in the field, after my last jump, my qualifying jump. Then we got them right out in the field.
Mhm.
This
Is
is
that-
one, what they call one stick.
when it's just all of you in a line like that?
Yeah.
And how did you feel after your training and getting this medal? Was it a sense of accomplishment?
Yes, pretty proud that I was able to do that. It's a good feeling with the breeze when you're coming down, but I always liked, I was happy with it.
Speaking of coming down,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about what you brought here,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
the parachute and the,
And the cord,
yes.
it's the rip cord. And this is the parachute that opens, you have it here on your stomach, and when yours doesn't open all the way, you should stand across. Then you pull this, and this little one will slow you down. But you have to wait to a certain time, so you're not too close to the ground, or not too late, and not too far from the ground. You kind of have to just judge it.
Was that part of your training too, figuring out
Yeah.
when it would be?
Yes.
And why did you end up having to use this? I mean,
Because the cord was across the main chute. So I had to, everybody's calling out, you got a streamer, you got a streamer. And so everybody looks up at theirs and sees if it's theirs, you know. And you have to check it yourself too. But I already knew that I had a streamer. By the time they started calling out.
and you got to keep the pull cord and the
Well,
parachute?
I landed with it in my hand.
Was it a moment of like just sort of adrenaline and fear, keeping it in your hand like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, you kind of go like this, and you're coming down, and it's right here, so pretty convenient.
Let's talk about this picture. What is this?
This was after. I think I'm here somewhere, but I don't know if I'm the third one or the fourth one.
And these are.
That's right. Okay.
So if you look on their chest, you can see the same pull cord that he pulled. So, how often was it that people ended up having to use these emergency pull cords? Was that a pretty rare occurrence, or was it common?
No, it wasn't too often. The only thing I'm glad happy for was that I didn't have to pack my own shoes. when you're in training here in the States, you had to pack your own, learn to pack your own chute, and then it's all on you. You know, if you didn't write, it's too bad. But they had somebody else packing our chutes, they knew how. So there wasn't too many failures.
I mean, since it did fail, was it nice to not have to take all of the blame for that since you didn't pack your own chute?
Well, we had to put it on ourselves, but they would come and check you. And even then, before you go out the door, they would check and see that you're okay. From the outside, that is, you know.
And what is this last picture about?
This is our barracks back here. They took over a whole almost city. I think bad new one. They took the whole city over that had big buildings like this. And our lunch hall was right across the street.
From where this picture was taken, or from the apartment?
Pardon?
Was it right across from the apartment?
The apartment, yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming that this is you?
Yeah. Yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
With our white scarf and white gloves and white shoelaces in our boots. So we were really sharp.
Was this because you were a paratrooper, or was this just for?
No, because of paratrooper. Yes.
Did you?
And we also had. We also were able to use the French Vertigar and the French and the Belgian Vertigars, because that was all part of the uniform for the 82nd Division.
And speaking of those medals, did you bring them here? The Croix de Guerre. Did you bring those with you?
No. I was kind of foolish. Quite a few years back, I sold my whole suit. The whole jacket. So I just took certain things off of them. Well, I didn't take the photographs off.
And why was it that you ended up selling your uniform?
Well, I didn't think I needed it anymore. It still fit though.
And speaking of medals, these are the ones that you did end up taking off of your uniform. We can start here. What was this one?
Well, I really don't remember.
Army Good Conduct Medal?
The good conduct medal. And then the Europe campaign, World War II victory, and the World War II Army of Occupation.
And above these medals, there's the stripe that you would wear on your uniform?
Uniform, that's right. And this is April 21st, 1946. This Monday, this man is to report to 69th Battalion Proving Grounds Monday at 1400 to qualify for the parachute school.
So this is the
When I got to Germany, then they asked if you want to become a paratrooper or not. So then I volunteered for that.
Can I see this?
Yeah.
So you have 4 different medals, and then the two that were from Belgium and France.
Oh, yes, yes.
So,
But that was all awarded to our,
division?
That division, yes.
Okay. And so when you got this letter saying that you were supposed to report for training, I mean, you had been looking forward to that, right?
Yes, I was right there. I was right there already. But they just went to, they gave people that volunteered to do that they should report that morning. We started the training.
And I see that there are some dog
Well,
tags.
My dog tags. Well, I never knew this myself. When somebody else saw this, they said because I had an allergy, I got a red dog tag. I didn't even know that at the time.
Huh. And I assume that these were all for the paratrooper training and
Yes, on the arm. This was on the left arm. This was on the right arm. Then other patches were, I don't know, part of the division.
And I mean, were you pretty prideful in being able to wear the outfit in this picture, the paratrooper outfit?
Oh yes, oh yes. Well, everybody that was a paratrooper was proud.
And I suppose, speaking of pride, what do you think is one of the best or one of your favorite things that you did during your service?
I guess being a paratrooper. I was very proud of that.
And being a paratrooper, did that get you particular respect from other members of the Army?
Oh yes, oh yeah. I guess that everybody was proud of the 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne. They done a terrific job.
And I want to shift to a couple of these pictures. So these two are ones of you.
Yes, both of them while I was in the service.
And this one, it says, was in 1946. So that was before you ended up going back home.
Yes, yes. That was all right there in Frankfurt, or Bad Neuheim, I should say.
And then, what is this?
That's my induction.
It's a special privilege pass.
Oh. I guess that's so we could go to the beer hall. They had one in this building, in the bottom, in the basement.
So you took good care not to lose this then?
What? Pardon?
You took good care not to lose this?
Yeah.
And then what is this? Is that the induction that you were talking about?
No, identification. Identification card.
So you had to keep this identification card on you then?
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, because you were part of the paratroopers, did you ever have an experience where you landed in a plane?
Well, the trouble is, it was been 70 years when I came home, not landing in a plane. but I forget, 8 or 10 jumps. And then when I went to Washington for
The honor flight?
honor flight, that's right. Then they spoiled it for me because I never flew in plane for 70 years, and then they spoiled my record. I didn't fly it for so long, but it was a good experience. Landing.
Yeah.
The right way.
The right way?
Right.
Would you call it the right way? I mean, you were part of the paratroopers, but would you have preferred to land when you jumped?
Well, I don't know. At the time, it didn't matter. I was young and foolish.
So I'm assuming you probably wouldn't jump out of an airplane at this point?
Probably not. Probably not. But my son-in-law, he went. Now he was in his almost 60s. He went and he had somebody hold him. They were fastened together, and they jumped out of the plane together. I don't know if you know that they're doing that, but you can, if you want to go and jump, they'll hold you and jump with you.
I might have to try that now, actually. Sounds like it would be pretty fun. I wanted to ask you now, we already talked about how you got back.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like getting back? I mean, you obviously went back on a boat and you stayed in Virginia, correct?
Yes.
What was it like after you had done your time for the Army? What was it like coming back to normal civilian life?
Well, it was kind of hard to get used to it again, but my job was held for me, so I had a job. I knew I could work, and it took a little while to get used to the easy routine, you know. But it was okay.
And what was the job that you had that was held for you?
Well, maybe the time getting up. I could sleep longer. Here, every morning we got up the same time, regularly. And after a while you get used to it, you know. But when I got home, I took advantage of sleeping a little longer.
I bet that was a pretty good few days where you got to sleep in after spending a long time not.
Yeah, right.
I can't imagine waking up that early every day, but I want to ask you, what did you learn when you were in the Army and you were in the paratroopers that you think helped you when you came back in civilian life?
Well, one thing, the strictness that they had, and you do what I tell you to do. Learn to follow orders, and well, I think that was the main thing, that you learn to follow orders, and it works out pretty good. Unless you want to be on your own all the time, well, then you don't listen to anybody.
So you'd say that following orders is a pretty important thing, just for anybody's life.
Well, I would say so. It's a lot easier, I think, following orders sometimes than to obey, than not to obey.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about what you might say to anyone. Would you encourage young people today to enlist?
Yes, I would. I wish there weren't any wars, but to be in the service, it makes you a man. You follow orders, you exercise, you do everything you should do to have a good life. Because to exercise alone is worth the price. And you can, even in the army, you can learn a trade. You know, they do different things. You can be in the different branches of it, the transportation. You have to service the trucks and different things. So work on.
Well, in closing, this has been an interview with Bob Teska regarding his service during the Second World War. My name is Pelham Hasler. The time is 4:50. And thank you for agreeing to this interview. And most importantly, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.